Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going on a really beautiful archaeological dig into Jewish philosophy. We're searching for a golden thread, a profound line of thought that connects ancient sacred texts directly to our very modern psychological need for one another. We're going to trace this idea from the early discourse on the Torah into Talmudic interpretation, moving from there to the Tanya, and finally to the Mei HaShiloach. So what do we actually learn from this golden thread? How does it all sum up? And what is the core lesson from this word of Torah? Let's find out.
Here is the roadmap for our textual journey today. We'll start with the tithe transaction, then move to Talmudic harmony, a world of continuous repair, the collective versus guilt, and finish up with the necessity of the other. Let's dive right in.
Part 1. The tithe transaction and the power of perspective. So our first stop is the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 26. It describes a situation where a person is finished giving all their required tithes to the vulnerable. The Levite, the stranger, the orphan, and the widow. They've done everything right. But then the text describes a seemingly bold demand made directly to God. It says that after doing all this, you should say to God, "Look down from your holy habitation and bless your people." Now wait a minute. Why on earth would we demand a reward for a mitzvah? It's highly unusual to boldly ask God to look down. The Hebrew word there is hashkifa, and basically say, hey, I did what you told me to do, now give me my blessing. We just don't usually see this kind of transactional demand in these texts.
It's fascinating to look at how different commentators handle this puzzle. On one side, you have the Bechor Shor, who says it actually is a mutual transaction. We did our part of the deal by taking care of the vulnerable, so we're well within our rights to ask God to do his part and bless the land. But on the other side, the Ketavei Kabbalah brilliantly points out that the word hashkifa means so much more than just a passing glance. It's a deep, zooming-in observation. It's entirely about perspective. It's how we choose to deeply perceive our reality. By caring for the stranger and the orphan, we are essentially asking God to look at us not with a quick glance, but with a deep, relational perspective.
Moving to part 2, Talmudic harmony, focusing on debate and respect. Let's see how this concept of deep perspective plays out in the Talmud, especially when brilliant minds fundamentally disagree with each other. Take a look at this bizarre but absolutely fascinating debate regarding the famous biblical rule against boiling a kid in its mother's milk. Does this rule apply to poultry? Rabbi Akiva says yes. Chicken and milk is absolutely forbidden by rabbinic decree, mostly just so people don't get confused with other meats. But Rabbi Yossi Haglili says it is completely permitted. His logic? Well, birds don't produce mother's milk. They aren't mammals, so the biblical category simply doesn't apply to them. You literally have two completely different perspectives coexisting at the exact same time.
And this brings us to an incredible story that brilliantly illustrates the respect they held for those differing perspectives. The Talmud tells us about a scholar named Levi who visited a man named Yosef Rashaba. For dinner, they served Levi a peacock's head cooked in milk. Imagine being served that at a dinner party. Now, this was strictly forbidden in Levi's hometown. So what did he do? He held his tongue. He said absolutely nothing. He realized he was in a place that followed Rabbi Yossi Haglili's ruling. Even without a unified, rigid orthodoxy, these wildly different perspectives could coexist with profound respect. Levi chose harmony over proving he was right.
Part 3. A world of continuous repair and the process of fixing.
Elevating our journey now to the Tanya and Lurianic Kabbalah, the tone shifts just a bit. We've seen how individuals act and how they debate, but how do we actually fix our broken world? The Tanya maps out this amazing cosmic movement for us. Step 1 is the action below, our human efforts, things like giving charity and praying. This creates an awakening that triggers Step 2, a response from above, which draws down divine light and peace. But here's the catch. Step 3 is our ongoing reality. Even with all that divine light, our physical, lowly world remains a gritty, challenging mix of light and dark. It isn't just instantly fixed.
This actually maps perfectly onto the psychoanalyst Melanie Klein's concept of the depressive position. That's the mature realization that the world isn't split cleanly into pure good and pure evil. Good and bad are hopelessly mixed. This gray, imperfect reality dominates. A world where the wolf lives with the sheep is incredibly complicated. We might crave a perfect utopian world where everything is just pure and good, but the Tanya tells us that's not really the point right now. The beauty and the ultimate goal is in the process of repairing. It's the continuous act of getting closer, much like the Buddhist concept of gade gade paragate, always going beyond, always in motion.
Part 4. The collective versus guilt, looking at insights from the Mei HaShiloach.
Now we reach the Mei HaShiloach, an incredible 19th century text.
we're going to use our golden thread of perspective to tackle a deeply relatable, very modern psychological problem. Let's talk about what we might playfully call the modern Western neurosis, or maybe the Jewish neurosis. It's that pervasive, unexplainable, creeping feeling of guilt. You know the exact feeling, that you are somehow at fault even if you have no idea why. Franz Kafka captured this perfectly in his masterpiece, The Trial, where a man is arrested and put on trial for a crime that is never actually named. He's just fundamentally guilty. As individuals, we carry this immense pressure.
So the crucial question is, how do we escape this crushing individual guilt? Well, the Mei HaShiloach offers a stunning, deeply comforting answer. It says, when God looks at the individual, the heart fears. But when God looks at the collective, the heart rests. Because in the collective, every soul is pure in at least one thing. That is just incredibly empathetic. True grace and relief actually come from zooming out. If you're judged entirely on your own, it's terrifying. But when you are part of a collective whole, your flaws are balanced out by the virtues of others. In the collective, someone is always holding up the light in the exact places where you might be falling short.
And finally, Part 5, the necessity of the other, moving from isolation to connection.
This brings us to the emotional climax of our explainer. We've talked about perspective, harmony, continuous repair, and the collective. Now let's bring all these texts together to address the most fundamental human condition of all. Imagine a really stark, tragic story. A man, let's call him Israeli, 41 years old. Due to a simple, bureaucratic paperwork error where someone just signed the wrong form, he is left stuck in solitary confinement. A day turns into a month, then 2 months. At a certain point, he stops shouting. He begins to actually lose his mind. He forgets where the physical walls of the cell end and where his actual humanity begins. Total isolation literally destroys the self.
Which forces us to ask a pretty jarring question. What is the difference between yourself and a physical object, like a wall, a chair, or thin air, if there is no other around to see you? Without another human being to witness you, to acknowledge you, to wave back when you wave at them, your very sense of a separate, distinct self completely dissolves.
To lighten the mood just a little bit, but to really drive this profound point home, think of that brilliant classic Sesame Street sketch about here and there. You've got two monsters trying to figure out the concepts of here and there, but they can't do it alone. Understanding your place in the world always requires a mediator. It requires an other to point and say, no, I am here and you are there. We literally need the other person just to orient ourselves in reality.
And this is exactly how our golden thread ties everything together. We've moved from the Torah's demand for a reciprocal perspective to the Talmud's quiet harmony amidst disagreement. We've seen the Tanya's patient, continuous repair of a messy world and the Mei HaShiloach's resting heart within the collective. So what do we learn? We are a single continuous fabric. We need the other, we need them to see our good, we need them to balance our flaws, we need them so we can forgive, and most importantly of all, we need them simply to exist. So, as we wrap up this deep dive into these incredible texts, I want to leave you with this final thought. If we are truly all part of a single, continuous fabric, totally reliant on one another for our very humanity, whose thread will you choose to lift up and appreciate today? Look for the good in the people around you because they are quite literally the reason you are here. Thanks so much for learning with me today.